All right, so our next proposer is Arise for Social Justice, and Tanisha, right?
Okay, yeah, I'm Tanisha Arena, and I'm the executive director of Arise. So I'm here today to talk about this proposal for funding for youth work under the ARPA funds. So the goal that we have in mind, with this program is to be able to help the families in Springfield and beyond during the time of COVID with utility payments, housing issues, food security. We run a full-service food pantry. That was something that we pivoted to during the height of the pandemic. It was something that the community said that would be helpful.
Okay, go. You're free to go wherever you
okay.
want. Yep.
So the way that we're looking at this, how do we, so if we weren't fully funded, how would we keep it going?
Yep.
So part of the goal would be to not reduce the activities, but maybe reduce the number of families. But then we also receive a lot of other funding that's for general operating expenses that could fill in the blanks if we weren't fully funded. So that's been something that's been extremely helpful, again, over the past year with COVID response and how funders are responding to organizations that are run by people of color. So that's actually been a blessing in disguise. So lots of Gen Op support dollars. The way that we would look at measuring success is the number of outcomes for the families that are experiencing hardship that we assist. At present, we have paid out about $300,000 in support during COVID, for families, alleviating overdue bills, food insecurity, transportation, other basic needs. We've partnered with some other organizations, for example, Bombas, with their socks, because socks are the number one requested item in homeless shelters. So we get supplies from them to hand out in our toiletry bags out in the community. So that's hand sanitizer, masks, socks, gloves, pretty much whatever we can distribute to assist in the community. We are doing direct service. There's lots of legislative action, organizing and advocacy, and the goal is to have as many residents as possible accessing the direct services and resources to meet their basic needs and advance their overall health and livelihood and well-being and that of the community. So that's part of the larger goal. And the way that we aim to do this and let folks know is with our partnerships with other organizations. We are connected to the Hampden County Continuum of Care, the Western Mass Coalition to End Homelessness, Neighbor to Neighbor. ROCA is a partner across the street from our office, Open Pantry, which makes me think of, we recently started a community garden to connect with folks in the community to teach about growing your own food, how to make things from the garden. That's also an act of political resistance. We have 2 Facebook pages. We are on Instagram and Twitter. So using social media in these kind of ways, we canvass the community, door knocking, flyering. We are connected with the local colleges. So those are things in an attempt to raise awareness of the organizing and advocacy and direct service supports that we have. And we have a Spanish-speaking organizer who translates all of our documents as well and puts that on our website. Timeline for this activity, 3 years, well, beyond. The work doesn't stop. And Arise historically has worked in communities that have been left out of the conversation. I'm being intentional about not saying marginalized because there's intentionality about what has been going on, and just excluding people from conversations at the table and the denial of resources. And that's just the work that we do about alleviating these burdens. It's our mission to educate folks about what their rights are, to fight for those rights, to obtain them. So this is just par for the course. And we've been around for over 35 years. In the city of Springfield, Arise, in connection with the Springfield NAACP, is the reason why ward representation exists. 16-year, 2 federal court case battle to have adequate representation of the city instead of the same old folks that were in city council and positions of power. Most recently, 12-year biomass win. I don't know if any of that news traveled to Holyoke, because certainly the smoke from a biomass plant would have traveled here. And that's something that we've been involved in with the community, saying this is not good for the residents of our city and beyond, and staying in that fight, because again, that was 12 years, and I'm still sitting in a position of like, I hope it's dead, for real, this time.
Well, just so you know, as a council, I filed an order in Holyoke to request that it not be funded or not be
That's right. Thank
permitted.
you.
So
Thank
just
you.
so you know.
Appreciate that. Yeah, so this is just part of the work that we do, in supporting the community, and how can we best support the community in offering solutions that have value. I would describe Arise as not being an agency, at least not forward-facing to the community, because when you come in, you're not a number. There aren't cubicles. We meet people where they're at, and they don't have to jump through hoops to have help, right? I don't want the blood of your firstborn and all those other kind of things. I mean, it's, again, just meeting people where they're at. The things that we do. So it's like, what's the experience with similar activity? We've distributed clothing items, done utility payments, and even beyond that, and people have asked me about this, we've paid car insurance. And somebody says, well, why would you do that? And I says, well, think about it. You can't pay your car insurance cancels, and then the registry is notified, and then they cancel your registration. But you're still going to drive because you have to go to work, you have these other responsibilities, and in the course of you driving, you're going to get pulled over, because that's just how life works. And then your car is going to get impounded. You're going to have other issues because now you've been driving without insurance and registration, and then you can't get to work, and then you're going to lose your job, and then you can't pay your rent, and then you're going to face eviction, and you're going to wind up in my office anyway. Pay the car insurance. And again, that's meeting people where they're at and thinking about the ways that one little thing can train wreck so many other things in someone's life. And I've been in spaces with business folks, other funders, and they're like, I never thought about that. You don't have to, because that's not in your purview. Mm-hmm. So being able to think about those kind of life choices and decisions and how we come up with solutions, I think is really important, because it's beyond the basic, like, yeah, everybody will pay your light bill and they'll pay your gas bill, but are they thinking about these other things that are just as important? So in operating the way that we do, we don't have those restrictions. So I could say, yeah, we're going to pay car insurance. We're going to pay cable, even though that's one of the more problematic ones, because they don't separate out the internet from your HBO Max or whatever it is. But you need your internet because your kids are doing Zoom school, and this is where we are. Yep. And these are the things that just make sense. So why would we not pay the cable? So that's experience with similar activities in running these programs. Our capacity to do it looks a lot different because we moved into a new building that's a lot larger. It's wheelchair accessible. There is plenty of parking. We have lots of rooms, places to store donations. Over the past year, staff has gone from being part-time to full-time, which has been, a success in and of itself. So we operate during normal business hours, outside of business hours. We are limiting the number of people inside of the building, just in keeping up with social distancing and COVID stuff. I did not lift the mask mandate. If you want to come into the building, you have to wear a mask. I'm concerned about the variant. One of the things that was incredibly important was the ability for folks to be able to walk in, because again, addressing the digital divide in the community that we serve, I couldn't say to somebody that was homeless, like, well, hey, go online and make an appointment or call us. Everybody doesn't have that kind of access. And historically, you could walk into Arise, have coffee, sit at the big table, read the newspaper. We would talk about what was happening in community. Yep. And that's what campaigns were born out of. And then COVID, and it's like, I can't do this anymore. So we actually modified part of the building. We have a foyer. Folks can come into the foyer, and then we took the second door and we turned it into a Dutch door. So you can see someone, you can take your temperature, do all those same kind of things, triage the situation. You can get immediate paperwork if that's what you need. You can set up an appointment with someone if that's what you need. And we didn't lose the ability to, again, meet people where they are, because you can still walk in and not have to worry about, I need to make an appointment online or have to call somebody. So that was super important. That was something that we changed. Preparedness to launch this activity, it's something that we're already doing.
Okay.
Because it's just part of the day-to-day. You know, we package and label our own hand sanitizer. We've designed our own face masks. We do daily advocacy, you know, for folks around homelessness, the housing right now with the moratorium coming to an end. We have volunteers and interns. I'm actually preparing for the interviewing of fall interns from some of the local colleges.
Could I just ask you, let me just ask you a couple, let me just ask a few questions if you don't mind my interrupting. So with the 50,000, how many people do you think you would serve? I mean, is there a limit on what someone gets, or is that depending on the circumstance?
So the max that we had capped, because we've gotten the same amount of money from other funders to do COVID work, and it was like we decided that $300 per family was a good number, and that could be split up in any number of ways. So some people came in and they needed $300 for their light bill, or maybe it was, I need $100 for the gas bill, and you know, but $300 seemed to be a pretty good number, and it allowed us to help a lot of different folks.
Okay, and is your office just in Springfield?
Yes.
Okay, so
But we do.
The more challenging question, I guess, now. So, if we fund this, how do we get more Holyoke people being able to get the service?
We could connect with Holyoke organizations. I mean, we do have folks that come into our office from Holyoke.
Yep.
So that, again, that's already happening. I could get you more information on
Yeah,
those
if you give me
exact numbers.
yeah, if you could get me that would be good. And without being too specific, and I don't want to get into someone's privacy, but if you could kind of give me the addresses that they're coming in from, if that's possible. If that's not possible, that's fine, right? But just the numbers would certainly help me in terms of, because that's the question I keep having. All right, so I've got a Holyoke person, but they got to go to Springfield. But you do say, so what agencies in Holyoke do you work with?
They're not women's shelter. Alianza, because they just changed their name.
Okay.
Neighbor to Neighbor also has a Holyoke location, and that could be our end too, because we're connected to Neighbor to Neighbor in Springfield. So again, partnering in that kind of way to say, hey, we are doing this. Can you let your constituents in Holyoke know, refer them in this way?
Okay.
Because that's how a lot of this has been going. And I think through the continuum of care, which is Hampden County, that's also an entry point, because there are folks that come to those meetings that are from organizations here in Holyoke.
Okay.
Would you be amenable to having like a 1 day a week staff person if situated here in Holyoke?
Sure.
Maybe, I don't know, does Neighbor to Neighbor have a current office space here in Holyoke?
I believe that, I want to say it's across the street, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Let me see, Neighbor to Neighbor. Oh, I think they do.
Because Neighbor to Neighbor recently took over one of our community gardens, so they've been more active here in the city.
Yeah.
But as the mayor said, one of the concerns is access to services for
Right.
folks. So
And LACE is another organization that I've been connected to, as well as Nueva Esperanza. I mean, we've actually had folks as far away as Deerfield come into Arise.
Okay.
So, and we don't turn anybody away, like there's no designated service area.
Okay. Well, you saw the wrap-up sign there. So,
So-
Tanisha, first of all, we thank you for submitting a proposal. Just so you know, we have $99 million of requests for $13 million of funding. We're trying to figure out how do we get the maximum benefit to as many people as possible. So we'll be looking at this. That's why we asked minimums and what could we still do something and have a positive impact if we didn't fully fund something, with the goal of trying to fund as many ideas, as many possible benefits as possible. So I'm hoping in the next 2 weeks to 4 weeks to be able to put this all together, and with the Community Development Office, the Citizens Advisory Council, and the City Council all being involved in that process. So We do thank you for your, number one, for what you've done already, but also for your proposals to try to help people in Holyoke. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.